Let's start off today's broadcast going to South Dakota, and we'll talk with Heidi. Hi, Heidi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. What is on your mind this afternoon?
I have two questions. One, I had a question about James chapter 4, verse 6, where it says that God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble.
Yes.
Can you expound on that a little bit?
Sure. Absolutely. Okay, so we're in James chapter 4, and the wrong assumption we want to make is that this is just to believers. You'll notice here he's calling them adulteresses in verse 4. Later on, he's saying that there's some proud. Later on, he calls them sinners. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, you double-minded. So there's all kinds of humans. There's Christians in this congregation, in this group, who have lost sight of their first love. They're committing spiritual adultery, if you will. There's others who would be defined as sinners. There's some who still don't have cleansing. There's some who need purified hearts. There's some who are not close to God yet. They're still far, far away. They're in Adam, not in Christ. And so there's all kinds of humans that are reading this letter, and if the shoe fits, you wear it. So James has an evangelistic heart, and James has a discipleship heart. He wants to talk to unbelieving Jews and have them come to salvation. He also wants to talk to believing Jews and help them take their next step walking by God's Spirit. So, again, if the shoe fits, you wear it. There's all kinds of people that are recipients of this letter. And then we come to your verse, the verse in question, James 4, verse 6. He gives a greater grace. It says, God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So, the gospel invitation requires humility. For the Jewish person, they have to decide, this is not about me and what I'm doing. This is not about my obedience. It's not about my commitment. It's not about my dedication. Narrow is the gate, and apparently that narrow gate is a man named Jesus, the man God, fully man, who died and rose again and made a way for me. He paved a way that is absolutely free. So I have to give up trying and be involved in trusting. I have to give up earning and achieving and look to a system that is all about receiving, not achieving. So this takes humility. This humbles the proud. So for the Jewish person, it was very humbling to admit that they could not self-justify, get themselves right by the law, and instead that they needed this new way of grace. So primarily, I think it's talking about that, the salvation decision, coming to Christ by grace through faith. And yet, isn't that the case that even after we're saved, Heidi, after we're saved, we can still sort of get into this sin management system where we think it's all about self-improvement and that sort of thing, self-cleansing, self-improvement, morality, ethics, as we exert human effort. And the flesh wants to do that. The flesh wants to get us off base in an achieving system instead of just trusting Christ in every moment. So, this concept applies. It applies because, God opposes the flesh, and God gives grace to the new creation, but opposes prideful flesh. Even in a believer after salvation, we can struggle with a prideful, fleshy attitude about spirituality. And what we're going to butt our head up against is the simple idea that we can't self-improve and we can't self-fix. And it's not about us and what we're doing. It's about Jesus and what he did and what he's doing, living in and through us. So I think the concept applies through and through. Before and after salvation, this holds true that God gives grace to the humble. Nevertheless, the context seems to be primarily talking about the salvation decision for Jewish people who were the recipients of James's letter.